Okay, so good morning, everyone, and welcome to track 4.4. Or should we wait for a few minutes after like they come in like from the coffee break? But yes, maybe just let's head start because I believe the important part is like our presenters like speaking and also the discussion. So I will do the intro very quick. My name is Keiko Fukumoris, Senior Energy Specialist at ADP, and it's my great pleasure to like moderate this session today. So, as I mentioned, like digitalization, environment, and people. And when I saw this theme, I felt it was a quite ambitious combination, uh, to be honest. But then today's speakers will clearly like combine how these like three elements are like deeply interconnected. So you will like amaze like how actually these elements are very important and then in the core of like energy transition. So before we begin, two things. There is like a poll function in the Fubo app, and then even during the session, if you could vote, so that can also like shape some of our discussion afterwards. That would be great. And the second is, well, we plan to have the Q&A session afterwards, like toward the end of our this event. It will be maybe good for you to like submit while like having presentation from our speakers. And then when you have question, please indicate to which presenters they are indicated so that I can pick some of them like during the discussion afterwards. And lastly, I will try to strict on timekeeping so that we can have a great discussion enough time afterwards. So without further any ado, I will invite our scene setter, our colleague Arjun Guha, to present. Over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Keiko. It's a pleasure to serve with you and the other panelists on this panel. And so I'm not terribly sure what the scene setter is supposed to do when we already have such good moderators and panelists available. So I could talk a little bit about my past experiences. And I've been in energy transition for the last 16 years now. And what I've tend to see is that many of the global efforts, they tend to miss the people that are the hardest to reach, those who are offline, those who are outside of the formal systems and most vulnerable to low quality energy access, pollution, and they're the least responsible for climate risk. So one of the real major tests of digitalization, and I'm not going to use the term AI in this thing at all, because I think that's a different league altogether compared to the topic. We are far away from putting digitalization across a wide swath of AI across a wide swath of poor people. So the real test of digitalization is not whether it improves our systems or makes us more efficient, but whether it really works for the poor and helps close the gaps in the digital divide or not. So already, these digital tools, they're reducing the cost of services for people like us. They are, to some extent, helping reach underserved populations, improve financial inclusion. Mobile phones have opened up access to financial services, payments. Digital tools, not AI yet, are being used for micro-scale credit appraisals to reach a larger number of poorer people. But I made a trip to India. I went from Manila to India on work last month, and I'll just share one experience. So all 10 days in a country like India, I managed to stay cashless and paperless. All 10 days of the experience. And this is like all food and taxis, they're online. Somebody's delivering food to your hotel. Somebody will come to your doorstep, take you for like $1 for 5 kilometers. To some extent, this kind of digitalization is benefiting only people like us who are like professional and we have access to formal, tools and everything. And so in my opinion, it's driving wages flat for a large amount of economically underserved people. So there's a bit of, there's two sides to this. To some extent, this is bringing people out of extreme poverty. It is formalizing a lot of erstwhile informal labor. So it's kind of benefiting, but it's these things, they can be automated as we move ahead. Food delivery and all, they can be replaced. They're getting into a bit of a productive. So the digitalization that benefits people like us is putting other people into a productivity flattening trap and a flat wage trap. So in that sense, this kind of inclusion on digitalization is not just about access, but about improving productivity of many different populations. To a large extent, the COVID experience showed us that digital access alone is not enough. Without a deliberate and planned design for sharing and inclusion, a lot of knowledge can stay locked away from people that need it the most. And three questions I think should guide digital energy solutions and part of our discussion today, if we can get to it. Are we reaching the hardest people to serve, the toughest populations to serve? Are we building skills and ecosystems that communities need? And are we measuring success in terms of livelihood, affordability, and improving environmental quality? Ultimately, digitalization will be transformative only if it changes, the category of people that benefit from the energy system and make the energy transition fairer, more inclusive, and centered on people. So with that, I'll hand it back to Keiko and maybe the first panelist, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Arjun. Yes, I particularly liked your point that intentional design for inclusion is necessary in order not to have the widening existing gap. So that's that requires an intentional inclusion. Maybe we can keep it in our mind when we hear our presenters. So let us now move on to our speakers. Our first speaker is Max Heil, a regional project coordinator at GIZ under the CASE program. And Max works on regional energy cooperation and power sector transformation across Southeast Asia, including ASEAN Power Grid and also CPED platform. He has extensive experience in multilateral energy policy and international cooperation, including previous work under the Africa-EU Energy Partnership. Today, he will present insights from CPED's $52 billion project database, offering unique data-driven perspectives on ASEAN energy transition. So Max, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kaiko, and good morning, colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here today and to present to you CPED, our Southeast Asia information platform for the energy transition. I will really want to share how we are using data and digital tools on CPED to strengthen regional collaboration and support a just and smart energy transition. Before diving into CPED, I just want to briefly introduce CASE, Clean, Affordable and Secure Energy for Southeast Asia. It's a project which is funded by the German government via the International Climate Initiative. And we support inclusive and evidence-based energy transitions in Indonesia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Vietnam, as well as on the ASEAN level, where we specifically work on the ASEAN Power Grid. Our consortium includes Agora Energiewende, New Climate Institute, and we also have regional partners like the Energy Research Institute in Thailand, the Thai Development Research Institute, and the Institute for Essential Services and Reforms, and the Institute for Climate and Sustainable Cities. So a lot of think tanks which contribute to our activities. So to achieve the mission of CASE, we really work first and all on research and evidence, where we work on dialogue with the non-energy sector. So beyond the ministries of energy and also working with other ministries, we support technical assistance. We promote public discourse, so also in schools and universities. And we also support transparency and mapping. And this is really what CPED is about and what I want to talk about today. So when the CASE project started, we really wanted to look into what is really missing to accelerate the transition in the region. And we did several consultations. We also did a market screening, what is actually available. And there was one major gap confirmed throughout the people we talked to and the data we saw. So a lot of information on the energy transition actually exists, but it's often fragmented across institutions, countries, and organizations. So without a shared platform, coordination is difficult and opportunities for synergy are really lost. So this led us really to create CPAT to bridge this information gap. So CPAT is designed to address the common challenges faced by energy stakeholders. Its objective really is to equip policymakers, researchers, development partners, financiers, and businesses with the information they need to manage the power transition. So in a sense, CPAT really tries to serve as a platform to facilitate the dialogue on this. And yeah, let's have a look of what are the different parts of CPAT. So we have a knowledge hub, which really curates publications and so on. We have the project mapping tool, which tracks clean energy initiatives across the region. And we have the power sector resources, which are really our data tools. And I will elaborate a little bit more on them later. Yeah, here you can see part of the knowledge hub. So we try to basically upload all the publications which are being made on the energy transition in the region. We also ask our members to upload their newest research, and we also have a newsletter. Then when it comes to the power sector resources, they are really designed to primarily for technical experts and also for policymakers. And one feature is the Power Transition Progress Tool. Here we monitor like 69 indicators across different dimensions. And the tool really looks into technology, looks into areas like institutions, how is the market readiness for RE deployment, how are the supply chains within the country for RE technology, and is there any stakeholder engagement on the energy transition? Then we have the Power Sector Data Browser. This is really our tool to map the generation and capacity of specific energy sources within the countries. And then we have the Power Sector Snapshot, which really tries to contextualize this data, also looking into the market setup and also looking into pricing mechanisms. Then we also link the Global Energy Monitor Power Plant Tracker. So here you can really see where are new power plants developed in terms of solar, wind, but also for gas, coal, and oil. And so you can see where are power plants existing, operating, and retiring. And then our newest addition is the Power Policy Tracker. And this is really gives a bird's eye view on renewable energy targets in the regions, EV targets, and also grid development plans. Let me quickly have a closer look at the project mapping tool. As Kaiko said, right now we have around 517 projects listed on the platform, which represent $52 billion in total funding. And we can see that most of the projects actually listed on our platform are in the JET-P countries, Vietnam and Indonesia. So that really reflects also the strong donor interest here in the region. And we can also see that the topics, the projects which are uploaded on our platform, most of them focus on renewables, some of them on energy policy and planning. Yeah, so you can really go through the database and then also look into who's supporting which project, who's the project manager of that project. Maybe you want to duplicate a project in another country, so that can be very interesting. Yeah, so why I'm talking about this, because really what we see, the energy transition here in the region, and I think we all agree, it's not an issue which can solve by an individual country, but we really need regional cooperation on this, and we need transparent data. So this platform really tries to provide this trusted information and also stronger coordination among stakeholders by providing the transparency, the data access, and improving the knowledge on the energy transition. So our ambition is actually quite simple here. We really want to empower the energy transition community with the information they actually need. Yeah, so I would like to invite you all, please get your phones out, scan the QR code, sign up to our newsletter, our monthly newsletter, explore our platform, and I'm really curious what you think, and also to discuss on how we could maybe collaborate or how you could contribute to the platform. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Max, and you were right on time. I also appreciate that. And I did actually scan it before, so I just like receive a notification that I have already subscribed. But when you go to the website, it's actually quite user-friendly, I found. And then I think it's the data privacy, that your key message, like data transparency, is like not technical, but it's like the essence for our collaboration and also cooperation. So I also like recommend all the audience to like click on the site afterwards and to explore. So now our next speaker is Mr. Dimpy Ma, Secretary General of the Chongqing Renewable Energy Society. Mr. Ma brings over 40 years of experience in energy sector with a strong focus on renewable energy development, international cooperation, and also like capacity building. And he has also worked closely with ILO and UN volunteers for green employment and training programs. So today, I believe that he will share some practical experiences from China on linking digitalization and green employment and also human development. Over to you, Mr. Ma.
Let me try. It's not working. Okay. I'm first go to here 10 year ago after COVID-19 is a very good memory about this building, green building. Last year, this is the 5th time I go to here. Before COVID-19, I remember it's free. I like it's free. After COVID-19, many popular go to here. Last year, I also buy 3-day ticket. Someone tell me if the speaker is free. So this year, I apply the speaker. I'm the engineer. I'm an engineer, especially for the long time, over 13 years. I do energy adult and manager more. I come from China. Before I work in the government for the energy efficiency sector. But now I work the NGO. I have learned more about for Europe and America, Japan. I am the exchanger NGO to Europe at the 3 months. I'm weak in English, so I work more. I introduce about the topic is green job. Because this green job, I think is very simple, but UNC is a very interesting topic. ILO invited me in the UN meeting to talk more about green job. I'm based in Chongqing. Chongqing is the southwest of China. Is clear to Bangkok. We like to the transfer to business trip to Bangkok to then to Beijing because Bangkok is clear. So is Chongqing is the industrial city. Have the more experience for the industry and the building. Welcome to Chongqing. We can talk about more about the energy and more efficient. Last 2 years, we have the more than 13 delegations come from ASEAN country, about 200 energy for special energy visit Chongqing. So we can talk more about. My opening is about the green job 3 topics. First topic is how can you use e-commercial find the more job. This have the more example for the China and other. Second topic about share battery or share energy is together with green finance. Third is maybe the vocational education, maybe the many channel about production. Let's talk about first one. Green job is very, very important. Before, someone told renewable energy, many lost work. I think is renewable energy and energy choice have the more job, such as in the e-commercial. Why e-commercial is so quickly? Because last year, have the many productions such as the PV can better help by the e-commerce to about. So have the more choice. China, you know, is many manufacturing about. So we have the more choice for here. So is someone needs the more job. I think first one is very important for the best e-commercial. E-commercial, maybe you remember the TikTok and more. Because the e-commercial have the ability, how can use the video. In Chongqing, we have training some foreigner student use the TikTok and the e-commercial find the new internal job. By the way, if the use this preparation, the second one is find which is a better production. Because in the Alibaba have the more production, but we have the ability choice which is best. So his together with society, we have the help them. They have more job for the here. We have also the training in Chongqing. Chongqing have the many foreign students, including the Philippines as ASEAN country Africa. We together the training for this one. We together for the green pill also share some battery in the countryside. This is for the tourist. Also is a good example for the ASEAN country and more. Because the tourists have the many knowledge together with EV and renewable energy. Second topic about share battery. Share battery, I think is things is very simple, but I think is very important. But only supplies the China production to foreigner is a business. But share battery is financing. Because of financing environments by the other country. I'm also fellow of the AIT. I know many Thailand university have a share EV motor. This is a China experience share battery. Share battery besides this here, if someone need West, you can to the university and tourist and more. Now we have a share battery in the countryside. In the ASEAN country, many hard to find the electricity. So use the PV together with the shadow battery find the new mouse. This is very useful. In China, many enterprise want to buy something. You can share battery. He can support you. You can share. I think it's very useful for the ASEAN country. If someone interested in, you can go to China Chongqing. I go to the factory. They can support the car, motor, and share it. Third is maybe share battery also have the tourist and more. It is very useful. Third is a very topic, very big topic. I think university education, West and local is very good. But since vocational education, China has a more position. So it's very important for the here. If you can together with the local, we can together with here. This is Chongqing have the more choice for the here. We can want to get more together. Talking of the young innovation is very useful for the here. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ma. So the key takeaway, so we have like already a few key takeaways, but then the green employment and also the vocational training, that would also like become like one of the core thing in the energy transition and not treated as like a side outcome. So that's also an important thing for us to note. And next, our speaker is Neil Salisbury, Executive Chair of Talent Co. Actually, he has like a many other hats as well, but Neil is a serial entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience in climate, sustainability, and impact-focused ventures. And he's actively involved in several organizations working at the intersection of energy transition and also workforce development. Today, he will focus on building the energy workforce of the future. So, Neil, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Kiko, and really good to be here. I've got a provocation for everyone here today. So we'll have the money, but not the people to solve the climate crisis or the energy transition. So my slides there is about that, the human side. The IEA and WRI talk about we'll need to have about 45 million new jobs by 2030, and over half of that is going to be in Asia. At the same time, currently, so I might start that first. Same time, currently, we have about 60% of the workforce or employers talking about skills shortages that they're currently facing. That's having a material impact on deployment, cost issues, and productivity. So the central argument here is we need to have people at the center of this energy transition. Quickly about Talent Co. Our mission here is to redefine how we hire and train the people that the transition requires over time. We're building a human-centric infra layer that sits basically at the intersection of skills intelligence, workforce strategy, and transition planning. So what does this mean? So we're building a core engine that is looking at integrated skills intelligence system that dynamically maps demand and supply, credentials, and career pathways. Now, there are a lot of megatrends that is currently shaping our future workforce. I've just got a couple there to talk about. And sorry, I've got AI in my slides, so I apologize for that. So let's start with that, right? So let's look at data centers. Now, this is one of the fastest growing megatrends globally. When I look at what's happening in Australia, for example, we've got currently 162 data centers around Australia, with 91 in the pipeline. Fairly rapid. And the consumption is fairly huge too, right? So depending on which country you're in, it's between 2%, which is currently in Australia, consumption, up to 30%. So quite large, huge. And with that, which we don't talk about, is the human side of being able to train and deploy different skills to be able to manage this rollout. We're not even talking about the social and environmental issues that come along with this rollout, right? I mean, there's some examples, like if you look at the US, for example, it's been badly rolled out, generally speaking, a lot of issues there. We're currently having one in Australia. So in Tasmania, for example, one of the data centers is likely to consume 15% of the state's electricity, right? Quite high. So there's a lot of social and issues happening at the moment within that state. Every megawatt of additional data center capacity requires a whole new suite of skills. System engineers, cyber professionals, the list goes on. And we're creating these roles faster than any education system in the world is creating, right? So we've got this big gap, and this gap's widening. Next, what I'll quickly touch on is the geopolitics and energy security. Now, the last 12 to 18 years, 18 months has been quite harsh on everyone. But let's pick critical minerals, right? So this debate is live even in Australia, for example. So do we dig up and mine these minerals and ship it offshore for downstream activities, where all the processing happens somewhere else, or do we build that in-house in our country? This is happening in Australia, it's happening in Indonesia and other places, right? So the big issue there is, again, is the skills deployment. We don't have the right skills to be able to bring on board the manufacturing and the infrastructure to be able to do this. When we look at just transition, now this is quite topical, again, all over the world, including in Asia. Whilst in Australia we have quite old, aging, coal-fired power plants, a lot of them 30 plus years old. We've closed a few of the last 5 years. No one does the transition well to date, right? There's a huge cost on human capital around how you basically transition people from those roles into other roles. Some do it well. So a case study is in Australia and Victoria. We've had a couple of old brown coal-fired plants closed down. Let's say Hazelwood, for example, which is quite in Loing Valley, Latrobe Valley. There are both federal, state, local communities working together to be able to create the right infrastructure to help people transition. Quickly touch on demographic bifurcation. This is quite important here in Asia because you've got some economies that have an aging workforce, and whereas others have a fairly young workforce. So that needs to be managed well in terms of how we transition people in. But also, those countries that have a young workforce, youth unemployment is between 15 to 20%. So we have an active young workforce who wants jobs but can't get those jobs because of the wrong skills. So these trends are having quite a disproportionate impact on countries in Asia, including skills mismatch, bottleneck of deployment issues, stranded workers. Now, typically, in most countries, the infrastructure and the power plants are located in areas that are remote to urban areas, right? So again, how do you manage that as you're looking at workforce transition is going to be important. So here I want to give you a couple of examples. You can read the kind of 3 reasons I put down there, but a couple of examples of what we're doing in certain countries. When Australia went through this whole solar and battery rollout, which is now probably the biggest per capita in the world, we had a fairly good system of training people to be able to be deployed in the renewable sector. So we had electricians being trained to be able to install solar PV or batteries, right? This was through vocational education. We had state governments having accredited professionals being rolled out and training to be rolled out in these countries. So we need to be able to have a layer of education and training that works alongside the deployment. And for me, the big one is policy coherence, right? That's been talked about a lot in this session. We need to be able to collaborate across a number of different verticals, be it energy, labor, education, investment. So we need to invest in these sectors to be able to roll out both the technical and the human capital as part of this transition. So I want to leave you with, so bear with me, sorry. With a couple of points as we close. None of this is, all of this is talking about the formal sector and not the informal sector, which I think we've got a couple of questions after in the Q&A. Now, Asia is at quite a focal point, an important part of history, right, at the moment. There's a kind of fork in the road here in terms of what we do. Like a well-managed transition with people at the center will generate up to 25 million jobs in Asia. A poorly managed one will create stranded assets and workers. So we've got to be really clear on how we manage this transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. And then, yes, I also see some of the, the sequence from the presentation that you also highlighted. Energy transition is like fundamentally also like a workforce transition. And that's like what, and also we are facing several challenges, also quite serious skills mismatch for us to like transition in a just way. So that's, I think we can also like discuss further during our panel. So our final speaker is Nidhi Prabha, Senior Manager at Sambodhi Research and Communications. Nidhi has nearly a decade of experience in inclusive development across South Asia, has previously worked as a JC advisor for USAID SARAP program. She has supported hundreds of women entrepreneurs and leads work on AI skilling, gender equity, and also capacity building. Today, she will discuss how AI can empower women. So actually, AI is now coming in our discussion as a digital change makers to clean energy system. Nidhi, over to you.
Okay, so a very warm good morning from me, nearing good afternoon. But I would like to firstly start with thanking my thematic chair, my, of course, ADB for hosting us, ACE Partners for curating this, a very, very well thought out, I would say, theme for ACE of 2026. I've been here before in 24, and I really loved how they have kind of embedded inclusivity right in the way we have conceptualized ACE of 2026. So, and my learned co-panelists have already kind of emphasized that we need to humanize the story. So they have made my job easier. And so, but what I'll do kind of force or at least probe our audience to think on is that while we are talking about, secure, resilient, inclusive, and intelligent transitions, or beyond transitions rather, in my 2 days of kind of exchanges and learning from the sessions, I feel like intelligence has been the dominant vein of thinking when we think about technology, right? Or AI rather. The moment we think about AI, we think about the cool satellite pictures, the stack, the advancements in terms of measuring, data, and of course it is mattering that we are measuring, because you cannot change what you cannot measure, right? So it's crucial how AI is kind of building us and helping us to measure what matters in a much more advanced way. But I'm here to kind of, put the inclusion angle to that intelligence a little more kind of in a structural way. So that is what I'll be doing. So before I begin with my presentation, just a little bit about the organization that I'm from. Sambodhi is a 20-year-old impact advisory firm with deep pockets in monitoring and evaluation, but we have been working across various tangents and AI skilling and capacity building. Some of the recent kind of cross-cutting also with comes to gender and women economic empowerment, etc. But you all can read about it, so I'll not spend more time on this slide. Jumping into how we kind of, when I was thinking about curating my own presentation, I felt like I should start with a poll, and thanks to my awesome moderator, she put it on Hua, and we had a lot of responses to this question. So even to the audience over here, the question that I posed was that what percentage of India's clean energy workforce do you think is made up of women? And as you can see, as up to last night, before I went to sleep, I kind of downloaded this and put it on my slide, is that most of you all think that it is less than 10%, and most of you all are right. But it is around 11%. So 11 to 12% is what the stats say. So this is what, so this was just to kind of start that this is the baseline that we're working with, when it comes to women in clean energy, not even AI. So this is what the baseline is. So in a way, when it comes to, thinking about AI and bridging the AI and gender gap, and also understanding that, it is beyond the grid, it is beyond the infrastructure, it is about people and humans. So what we have right really is that in India, we have now the third largest installed capacity, if I'm not mistaken. And we have done solid work in the past decade, past 5 years on this front. But what we haven't done is to make AI, and especially AI, more palatable, more comprehensible for a lot of us, right? A lot of the last mile folks. So these solar grids are largely in areas which are rural, largely in areas which are dominantly kind of the population is largely rural, slightly urban in certain contexts, but it's largely rural. So what that gap is that now we need to also think how we can utilize that community as workforce when it comes to transition, clean energy transition. So that is the kind of baseline that I'm going to be talking about today, and especially also gendering that. And I know that when we often talk about gender, we think it's about only about women, but it is more often than not for this presentation a methodological convenience why I'm talking about women here, because we're talking about a case study of the rural SHG women network that we have in India, and how they can and they do have the potential to kind of break that glass ceiling and become more of entrepreneurs or data intermediaries when it comes to clean energy transition. So what you can see in this, how I've kind of conceptualized this particular slide, is also coming in from my experience in the SAREP program and the AI skilling work that I'm now doing with respect to capacity building at Sambodhi. And what we have seen so far when it comes to using women or unlocking the potential of women, we still have a solid network of SHGs, but we stop thinking that the structural barrier that we ourselves have, that this is a pool of women whose AI literacy, whose digital literacy or digital readiness is not at par with thinking about intelligent systems. So it is more of a bias, a structural barrier in our own mindsets, which was the case when we even kind of the project that I'll be talking about. And this is what we even started with when we went to the government and various bodies and various through NRLM. So in India we have a functioning body of National Rural Livelihoods Mission, which primarily work with a lot of rural folks, primarily women, and even organizations such as RTA, DCF, etc., which work with the tribal women through Vandhan Sakhis and VDVK schemes. So we went to these outfits and we spoke about how is it that we can train women on AI. And their question was, you want to train tribal women on AI? Are you serious? What's wrong with you? And we also thought about it, like maybe this is something that is not going to fly as well as we're thinking. But maybe because of the training that, I mean, when I joined Sambodhi, I felt like we need to kind of, engender this entire vein of thinking, and we need to at least do some sort of training needs assessment to even question our own biases. So that is how we kind of started with, and that is, what I'll be speaking through the other slide. So, but why AI upskilling for the grassroots communities, therefore? Of course, AI is very quickly, in the past 2-3 years, it has completely disrupted the future of work. But when it comes to grassroots communities, uh, definitely there is a lot of barriers at our end, but also there is a mindset thinking and barrier at their end, because, it seems like it is far too complex. They have not heard about artificial intelligence, most of these folks. They're barely about started using smartphones. And then there is also, while we have a amazing digital public infrastructure, as Arjun was rightly pointing out, like we are cashless everywhere, even in the rural communities, right? We have done wonders with the UPI and digital payments and all of that. So it's not like these communities don't understand the language of money on phones. They understand the language of money on phones. They understand, so they do have sorry, I think I'm running a little behind on time, but I'll just quickly try to focus on the remaining slides in the interest of time. But why focus on women is what we'll go into next. So of course, as I was talking about, build like what these barriers need to go away with, and the training needs assessment that we did, we realized that these women are using digital commerce. They are ordering things from a platform called Meesho. It's like one of the most, I would say, affordable forms of e-commerce platform in India. So they all do that, but they don't use it for education, for upskilling themselves, etc. So what we realized that in order, so this project that we were working was kind of funded by AVPN, and it was also, Google.org and ADB also were, part of that funding consortium, and it is called the AVPN AI Opportunity Fund. And through that, what we realized is that the modules that we got from Google for this training was way too advanced. It was about basics and foundations of AI ML. It was about, art of prompting, but we need to make it more, you know, palatable, more comprehensible for our community, and also useful for our community. So when we did the training needs assessment, we broke it down into 17 modules, uh, which was not the ask from the funder, but we did because we realized that we need to teach this community how to create email IDs. We need to tell them how to do digital marketing for their products, because these are SHG women who are they are micro entrepreneurs. They already have amazing products that can be scaled on various e-commerce platforms that the government of India is investing so much of, like ONDC, for example. So that is how we kind of, worked on transforming barriers. And this is the solution that we came up with, which is called Sahaj AI. It's a WhatsApp-based in-house built solution for trainings that we did for this particular program. And Sahaj is basically, we realized, because we are talking about communities and areas which are very, very remote, very, very low bandwidth, and an app to be downloaded and the phone will not be working. So what you need is an app which is vernacular, which has all the training modules on their hands and their phone, because everybody uses WhatsApp now. And that is how WhatsApp chatbots and Sahaj AI kind of worked wonderfully. So we executed this program since July is when the store training started. And this is how, we have kind of gone about it. And then the second poll, which is also on the Hua app, was about telling you how many women are currently part of the India's self-help group network. And most of you kind of mentioned that it's about 5 million, which is completely off, because we are more than 90 million people in the SHG network. So that is the kind of, group and network that we have in India with respect to SHG folks. And therefore, it is important that we think about this community, this workforce that is already there, and with little support from us, from intentional, as Keiko was saying, the design itself needs to be intentional to be inclusive. And when it's inclusive, it actually works for everyone. So it's not just about women, it is about everyone. And what we have done with respect to this project in terms of numbers, we have reached over 19,000 folks, of which more than 92% of them are women. And there's another thing that I would just like briefly stress on, which is because there are digital gender gaps. Not every woman has a smartphone in India, though not everybody or not every woman has internet access on their phone. So what we did was we thought of common digital hubs. We thought of having demo sessions and in-person onboarding through shared mobile devices, and it has worked wonderfully. So this is how we need to start thinking when we're thinking about humanizing the story, but also having an intentional design, an intentional kind of language, so to speak, when it comes to solutions in AI. Kind of demystifying AI as something which is far too complex for most of the resource poor communities. And we have done a lot of it through using, our Sahaj is both in English and Hindi as of now, with potential to scale into other languages with, platforms like Bhashini, etc., that the government of India has kind of made up. And so this is how it looks like, the interface of Sahaj. You register, you can choose your language, and you can get trained. Uh, we also have used a lot of multimedia for our trainings, because we realize that this community needs to have something that they can go back, watch again and again, and retain. So the training doesn't need to be a one-off kind of a situation where you just train people like herds and then you just go off, right? So this is the way we conceptualized it, and we recently also won an award from AVPN for one of the outstanding impact story challenges. In the interest of time, I did not play the video, but you all can scan and watch the video at your convenience, and I'm sure that it will be up after the session as well. So this is what I would like to leave the audience with. When we think about AI skilling, when we think about AI, we need to demystify it, thinking of it only as something which is far too complex, something which is, the intelligent part of AI, but we need to humanize that story. And that is what I'll leave you, audience, with. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nidhi. And I think she concludes very well, like our four of the speakers. And then now we would like to invite all of our panelists who just presented to the to, uh, to the podium, and also Arjun as a scene setter. He will contribute as a more like a critical question poser now. Hope this works. Okay, good. So, I mean, we have heard many elements during our presentations, like systems and data, employment models, workforce challenges, and also inclusion. And then now, we have all the speakers as panelists, and then as I mentioned that the Arjun who not only did a great scene setting, but also now I would like to invite him to pose a few critical questions to our panel, and then Arjun, over to you.
Thank you. Keiko and I, we decided to surround you guys so that you can be bouncing between the two of us. That's how we planned the seating arrangement. So thanks to all the panelists for coming all this way, joining us at Asia Clean Energy Forum. Thank you to Nidhi for adding women representation to our panel. Otherwise, we would have to cancel the panel. Believe me, we have a requirement in ADB that we require women representation and perspectives in all panels and all conferences. And thanks to everyone for supporting that. So I'd like to start off with Max. So Max, even I used to be part of this kind of, a platform for matchmaking and everything long back. What it turned out is that this kind of platform needs curating, data integrity, and active management for people to be able to use it. So could you give us some perspective about what somebody's supposed to do with that, some end use cases of commercial activity that could be enabled through the panel? And one other thing I'd like to politely mention, Max, is that you mentioned donor once. I think that's exactly the narrative that a lot of the developing member countries are trying to get away from in that whole JETP and energy transition mechanism framework.
Yeah, thanks, Arjan, for the question. Very valid points. And yeah, let me start with saying you're totally right. It's quite resource intensive to keep the platform running and for keeping it updated, all the different tools. So yeah, we are also right now in discussions on how this model could actually sustainably run and how we could team up with regional organizations who already have a mandate on gathering data in the region and who could actually benefit from the tools we provide, and also seeing in what is already existing and what can our tools actually add to that. Yeah, and I want to be a little bit more specific on the project mapping, but because the projects we list are really looking into what our development partners doing here in the region. So it's not private sector projects which are ready for investment, but it's more like what is actually happening on capacity building. So you can actually search for capacity building projects and see what has been done in Indonesia. Is that maybe something interesting you want to duplicate in another country, especially on skills training? So this is what we try to map because we see that there's a lot of things happening on the ground in these projects, also on policy advice, as we have seen in the overview. But yeah, we want to basically gather this knowledge and see and compare who's doing what.
Thanks for that, Max. My next thing is to Mr. Ma. Thank you for the presentation. I've known you since 2013. I've been very interesting work you've been doing. Could you give us some perspectives that right now you're saying a lot of young people are getting livelihoods by doing TikTok product videos or TikTok interviews or Temu advertising, which is kind of free advertising for the actual company. But what does the youth do next after those video based? What is the next step in the revolution? Like, as a comparison, people like us, we get educated, we join a first job, we take a second job, there is progress in our value add to our different organizations and other communities that we serve. Where does somebody go from the TikTok and Temu product videos?
Thank you. Is a good question. In Chongqing, for the Chinese, I think the green job is maybe it's not very popular, but I think the foreigner is very useful because my society has many foreign student here. He want to answer internal and find the job in Chongqing. But what I think green job is first one he now SDG and more about the environment as protect climate change. If the ability is only not only business, he has knowledge of screen. Second one is ability. Ability as TikTok as e-commercial and more video making is a new technology. I think the two knowledge both is very useful for find job. Can find the internal and cooperation with the local government as a company. For the future, I want to the foreign students in China and other countries can share the technology. I think the share knowledge is very useful than the forum. So is together we find the more stress. I'm China. I'm old engineer. I think is many ASEAN countries as a South Korea country need to share technology to find green job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ma. Thanks for that. Any other counter questions in between from any of the other panelists? I wanted to open that up, that beyond your presentation, please let's have a conversation, rolling conversation. Nidhi?
Yeah, no, I just, when you said this, and even listening to all the folks, I just could see synergies in, like, a lot of. So for example, if he's talking about vocational training, that is the kind of ecosystem level capability building, I would say. More than capacity building is a very abused term in development kind of parlance, but that's what I'm saying, that I think what I looked at was more of synergies, and then how these kind of vocational programs, because the barrier, as I was saying, is also at our end with respect to thinking that, okay, this is a community perhaps which is not digitally ready, and that was completely something that I also kind of unlearned through my own program. So just want to reiterate that. Yeah.
Good to know that. Moving on to Neil, could you put a little more light on the Talent Co program? You're doing it in the Pacific Islands, right? Not necessarily in Australia, or?
Sorry, no, we're not doing it in the Pacific. That's a different company.
That's a different company that you're doing. Okay.
But I can talk about the informal sector that you just kind of touched on in vocational training. I think the data I presented before was all in the formal sector, and there you have a interaction with your employee. You've got a contract that you need to agree to. So it's easy to influence. Whereas the informal sector, which is quite large in Asia and other parts of the world, harder to have an impact or influence on. And typically you find that any intervention needs to be place-based and community-based. To give you a couple of examples, I mean, about 15 years ago, actually, we did some work in East Timor through some Google funding. We were rolling out solar PV in East Timor, and we needed to train, because when you install solar PV, typically it will fail at some point in its life, and then it ends up in the waste heap. So we had to basically build an entire vocational training program around the community, so they could install, maintain, refurbish, so it kept going. So that was, location, place-based, community-based. And a similar thing we're doing in the Pacific as well. Yes.
Thank you, Neil. Yes, actually, that was also like one of the questions that I had in mind, that because like there are so many informal sectors in the region, how actually that you can tap into and then also like include in a real sense without like leaving like informal sectors colleagues behind. So thank you very much. And now I probably would like to also a bit focus about the data. Maybe like this is to Max, that how can data and transparency actually accelerate? We understand that they can coordinate based on the platform that you have, but then with that, how you can actually accelerate and the energy transition. Maybe if you can elaborate further, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Kaiko. Yeah, I mean, as I said also in my presentation, what we really see that a lot of data is still fragmented, or maybe the data owner doesn't want to reveal it, right? Make it transparent. So what we really want to try to achieve with CPAD, to have this one-stop shop, having the macro data on energy generation and also capacity, and on the other hand, really having this project data, because then also if you are a local NGO, also specifically looking into capability building on the energy, then you could maybe also find some grant financing schemes there, which then can also, help you to deliver the work you want to do. And you can also see, I mean, from what we also really want to try to achieve, to have a way of comparing the countries in the region, and also seeing like what is working well where and how can other countries maybe adopt that. And this is specifically referring to our policy tracker, you know, where you can look into the RE targets and also the specific policies which surround that. So this can really also provide some front running between the countries, and I think this can be actually very, very helpful then also to make better decisions and achieve stronger coordination between the countries.
Thanks, Max. Over to Nidhi. Actually, you know, very interesting, engrossing work. I was really engrossed in the kind of thing because I've seen a lot of those things happen in India. It was really nice to see someone who's real. I've seen it from the actual end user side, up in the mountains of Chhattisgarh and all. But it was interesting to hear you talk about the design. Right now, the way AI for people like us, it's kind of brainwashing us into prompt engineering and supporting them. Could you talk about a few inclusive design use cases of AI for, say, a rural Chhattisgarh hill tribal woman or child for that matter? Because I'll come with an example after that.
Sure. So, as I was saying, and even you all kind of reiterated on this, that until unless it's intentionally designed in an inclusive manner at the get-go and not, kind of added on as a variable, which often happens when it comes to inclusivity and gender interventions, it doesn't work. So there is a lot of interesting work happening in India with various collectives, like, there is a Janai, a collective that they are doing interesting work. There are certain organizations like Nudge or GND Hub, and these are dedicated, and Gates is right now putting a lot of focus on ensuring that we now move away from just focusing on the digital divide, but we actually go into saying that, okay, what is the difference that you are able to generate in terms